We have,
I haven't.
Okay.
I'm going to call a meeting to order at 7:05. And if we could minimize talk amongst yourselves there to just make sure the people who are online can hear. Okay, so call to order. We have all three selectmen present. We also have Luther Brauch, and we have Cindy Ford and Paul Varga. Okay, let me just go back to here. Oh, and there she is. We have Jessica as well. So in terms of hear from the public, do we have anybody to speak from the public about anything that's not on the agenda? That's a no. Thank you very much. Going back to here. What I'd like is a motion, if you wouldn't mind, to move new business item C, and ultimately another motion to move new business item D. The first one is the housing authority request, and the second one is the farming exemptions discussion up to the top of the agenda.
So moved.
Seconded.
And for the second one, same thing.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Okay, Jessica. If you'll come off mute, very good.
Yep.
Thank you. Would you clarify for us? I don't think I have anything in writing about this.
Yep. So, yeah, so let me kind of just explain why we're requesting a reduction for the pilot tax for fiscal year 2025. So this would be due in June of 2025. Typically, we come to you later in the year if we need help. But this year, circumstances have forced us to come now at the beginning of the year. So the reason being is our insurance premium for property has increased. And last year it increased by 66%. This year it went up another additional 55%. So I had budgeted an 8% increase in insurance for this year. That was definitely not enough. We did manage to find a new insurance company. So I've been with the same insurance company pretty much since I've been there the whole time, 15 years. And but I've been unhappy with them lately. And then with these really huge premium increases, last year it became clear that that was not sustainable for us. And so last year I actually started looking for a new insurance company. It's taken us over a year to find a company that will take us on as a client, but we did manage to find a company. However, the insurance is still a lot higher than I had budgeted. So we're looking at property insurance, just the property insurance alone, at $59,244 this year. And like I said, 2 years ago, I was paying about $24,000 a year. So this is a really big increase. And over the last 2 years, like I said, this premium has gone up substantially.
What were you paying 2 years ago?
About $24,000
Thank you.
a year.
Thanks.
And last year went up to $43,000. And then this year I got an initial price of $68,000. Luckily, like I had said, though, that was the previous company and I was able to switch over. So now we're looking at a little over $59,000. So, I mean, we have managed to save some money, but that is still a lot of money for us with insurance. And I continue to be very concerned about insurance premiums over the next few years. Ideally, we don't have another 50% increase next year. Because that is absolutely not sustainable for us. Our revenue increases by 3%. So when our expenses increase by that much, that's really not something that works for us. So, but in order to submit an amended budget to the Department of Housing for this fiscal year, I am asking the Board of Selectmen to reduce the pilot to 5,000 just for this year. Just to help us submit a balanced budget. And I was able to cut a few other areas within the budget just to make up that difference so we could cover the premium for this year.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is
So,
this something that's been reviewed or gone through your commission?
yes, yes. We had a meeting last week and I was hoping at least Dennis or, somebody would hop on tonight, but we did have a meeting last week. We went over it. We went over the budget and what needed to be changed and they they wanted me to go to the Board of Selectmen to ask for this. This is not something that I take lightly. I do not ever, it's not the first thing I go to is looking at the pilot tax, but when I have to come up with almost $10,000, it's just really difficult with our extremely tight budget. There's only so many things I can cut.
Have
So
you had a number of claims?
no, we have had 0 claims the entire time I've been there. We've never had a claim.
Jessica,
So.
the Department of Housing or the state, have any relief or any, so like, I mean, we have Karma that we work with.
Mhm.
They have any sort of a company that they try to help you with this or assist in any way?
As of right now, no, I have talked to the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority about this and expressed my concerns over the last 2 years on insurance. And they have said that this is a concern among many housing authorities, that their insurance premiums have skyrocketed. And so as far as I know, they are discussing it and they're trying to think of, ways to help housing authorities because I explained to her that if we continue to have an increase of, even 40%, 50% every year, that's just not something that, we're going to be able to afford. And they're very well aware of that. So I'm hoping, if I keep on them about it and keep bringing it up, they'll, along with other housing authorities, ideally they will come up with something to help us. Even if it's just some relief with operating expenses, like just a general relief with operating expense to help cover the insurance.
Again, what about Kerma?
I've never actually heard of that.
Karma, I was on the board of directors for over 8 years. And it was one of the things that I, being a former chairman of a housing authority, brought up on why we couldn't bring them into the pool. Because when we started Kerma, the towns were in the same situation that the housing authorities find themselves in now. I think we ought to bring it up to them again. I mean, they're looking to
Yeah.
expand their pools.
I suggest also, aside from the fact you have a real problem right now,
Mhm.
I also suggest that you talk with Sherry Susie here in our finance department about
Okay.
who to talk with at Kerma.
Okay, very good. I will do that.
They
Absolutely.
don't cover them, but they should.
Right.
Okay.
Have you gone through a professional real estate broker or anything to try to broaden your search or anything, Jessica?
No, so I did find a new a new agent. And honestly, our insurance company that finally signed us on is out of Cincinnati. The problem we have with covering our building is the estimated value is now over $9 million.
Yeah.
And most insurance companies just don't want to pay that type of coverage, for that amount of money for that building. So like I said, we started working on this last May, and it has taken us this long to find an insurance company. I'm just grateful that we did find one, but I'm still concerned about insurance.
I know a few people that are in the business. If you don't mind, I give them your name and number.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they can be of any assistance.
Mhm.
Catherine, I'll make a motion to adjust the pilot in reference to $5,000 for this year, given the situation with their expenditures on insurance.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate
Bear
your
with
help
me.
with
All in
this.
favor, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Always nice working with you.
Yes.
And I
same
just
here.
wanted to thank you again for making sure that we got the $10,000 that we essentially
Mhm.
lent to you back.
Oh,
So
yeah,
well
absolutely. Yep.
done. And the van is
Yep.
doing well? The
Yep,
vehicle?
yep. The van is great. We're using it on a regular basis. So yeah, it's working out really well.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I don't think we have, unfortunately, I don't think we have, not for Jessica, but, it doesn't look like we have.
Are you looking for me?
Yes, Lynn, there you are.
I've been here.
Atta girl, thank you. Okay, so the next thing on our agenda is the, discuss, we're not taking action on it at this point, discuss changing the farming exemptions. We had an original request back in January with certain limits that were brought up. There's certainly been a change to legislation that has increased those limits. And that's a factor in taking a look at this. So Lynn, could you take us through, I've given Luther a copy of what you have as well, in addition to the other selectmen. Could you take us through each one of these? Briefly, and what we do have in our packet is we have them all listed. And we also have, what I had asked Lynn for, was what is the impact financially on the town of changing these? So that's what you'll find for the two, and who this affects in terms of which farms, or businesses. So if you take it away and kind of take us through each one of them.
Sure. So the Word document that I gave you, the first part is just showing what is currently available in Ashford to the farm operations. Farm machinery. So I've got three different things, 1, 2, and 3. The first one is 12-91A, and that is for farm machinery, which is declared on their business personal property declaration. It's state mandated, and they can request an exemption of up to $100,000 in assessed value. The second thing is the town adopted many years ago 1281M, which allowed for a 50% abatement for dairy farms for their farm buildings and their farm land. In the early 2000s, the statute was changed to allow orchards and vineyards, and Ashford did add that to it. And the third one is 12-91C, and that's another local ordinance that the town adopted, I believe, 2007, but I didn't write that down. And that is to exempt each farm building up to $100,000 of assessed value. We no longer have any, for option 2, we no longer have any dairy farms in town, and we had one orchard receiving the dairy farm and orchard vineyard exemption. It was just sold and taken over by a new owner, and I was in contact with them earlier this year, and they possibly will be applying for that this year. And As far as the third one, the farm building, we have many farm operations that have been receiving that. And, over the years, there's been new ones added. The second part of this document is just summarizing what the Ag Commission had submitted earlier this year, what they were proposing that the board consider. And that was to adopt, the first one is to adopt a local option 12-91B. And that was to exempt an additional $100,000 of farm machinery. So up at the top, we already have one that was state mandated 100,000. This recommendation was to adopt the local option to add additional 100,000, which would bring it to a total of 200,000 of farm machinery. You're going to see I have a couple things in green. I'll just get back to both of those in a moment. The second thing that the Ag Commission was recommending is that 1281M be amended to add other farming operations such as vegetable nursery and non-traditional. I didn't mention it when I was up at number 3, highlighted in yellow. When the town adopted the local option for farm buildings, they did specify in that ordinance that if you were getting the dairy, orchard, or vineyard 50% exemption, that you could not also get the farm building exemption. So it specifically states that right now. And I'm going to get to the 2 spreadsheets in just a moment, but now what I want to mention is this past legislative session, there were 2 new changes. So if you go back up to number 3 at the top, our farm building, which is currently $100,000 worth of assessed value, it can now be amended if the town so chooses to exempt up to $500,000 of assessed value per farm building. And then the second change, and this is for starting for Grand List 2024. And the second thing that changed in this legislative session is number 1, which was proposed by the Ag Commission to exempt an additional 100,000. You could now exempt up to an additional 250,000 of farm machinery, which would bring a total to 350,000 if the town so chose to do that. So with that said, the next spreadsheet, which is on the top left, is labeled Attachment A. This is the easiest one to show. I put it in order by assessment value. And so I've just listed the current farm operations in town based on the most recent grand list, what their farm machinery assessment is, and then what they're currently, how much of that they're currently being exempted for. And, the maximum is 100,000. So many of them, have reached, they're not over the $100,000 limit. So they get all their farm machinery exempted. And then the last 3 at the bottom, they do exceed the 100,000. So they, they're losing out on exemptions, unless the town chose to, adopt the additional farm machinery, which could now be up to 250,000, if anybody expands their business.
Good. Any questions about that piece? Okay, want to move on to the other one?
Okay, so the
I'm sorry, Bill may have a question.
Sure.
Discuss the new legislation.
You're discussing it Wednesday night. I can't speak as to how the commission will discuss that until we do.
Yeah,
I think it's a reasonable belief that the commission would see the adjustments as favorable.
Can you hear, Lynn?
Yes, I can.
and the new legislative items allow you to exempt more than you're requesting at this time, right?
When they requested in January.
With the new,
Yes, and I have some information that I can share after, if it's appropriate, about sort of what that looks like for impact and what it looks like in terms of how long it's been since the last time these adjustments were put forth by the General Assembly, and what the values of equipment and things like that have done in that time, if that context is beneficial. If not, I'll just
I
sit
don't
here and be
think-
quiet.
At this point, I don't think it is. We're really looking to what do we want to do now, right?
Sure, it's just a function of, this hasn't been updated in over 30 years.
Right, but we're looking at it.
The only-
But we're looking at updating it now. I'm just
Yeah.
curious, based on what Lynn is mentioning about the new legislation, do you have to relook at it before we
Act.
So the Ag Commission is purely advisory.
understand?
Yeah, so if you as the Board of Selectmen make a determination to adopt part, all, or none of the newly available exemptions, it's fully your scope. My belief is that the Ag Commission will meet and discuss this and will likely recommend adoption of what's been newly allowed. But
That's
we
where- that's
can't-
where
we can't, we
that-
can't do that until we meet formally, but that's
Exactly.
my expectation.
Exactly, and that's what we would, in a sense, require, is that
Of
you're
course.
making that recommendation, you are advisory.
Of course, and
Okay.
also just very briefly, I'm really impressed that this is being done so quickly. I mean, this
It must
just
not
was put
feel,
into
it must
effect.
not feel quickly
No,
to you.
this just happened June 6th. This is tremendously fast to be discussing this.
Okay,
Uh,
good.
Lynn is on top of things.
Lynn
That's
is
why I should
very
look at her as a valuable resource. What I'm hoping to do is because as you mentioned, it's been a long time since we've adjusted our ordinances or whatever. I don't want to go forward on this until you have an opportunity to give us input on the new legislation and what impact that may be.
Right, we have a bit of a timetable, because the new grand list will be coming out in October 1st. And so anything that we do, I believe, affects that. And so in order to change some of these things, an ordinance, you have to have a town meeting and a vote
Well, the way I would see it.
before
I'm not
October
disagreeing.
1st.
We'd have a public hearing
Right,
and we would, of course, be there and run the show. We'd ask you folks to give us your input based on what you will have submitted to us. And then we either adjourn that right to a town meeting or
exactly.
at our discretion.
That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
A lot of sense.
And
What I don't
warning
wanna
a
do
town
is
meeting, we have to
recreate
do
the wheel
in
if we-
advance.
That's
so.
30 days or something, isn't it?
No, it's not 30 days. It's more like,
for
I don't know if
public-
it's 7 or 14, something like that, or 10.
I was gonna say 10 business days.
Yeah, I think it's 10 business days. And again, I just wanted to make mention of the fact that there is a timetable in order to allow this to take effect in a
I
meaningful
might-
way to our farmers.
Lynn, what would be your time frame at the latest that we have to be able to act on this so that you'd be able to get your ducks in a row?
Well, it's just, if you chose to proceed with this, we already have the farm building exemption, we already have that ordinance. It would be a matter of having the town attorney just verify the changes, which would be changing the limit on that. And then, of course, the farm machinery would be new to Ashford. And, I typically, when we're looking at a new ordinance, I just take copies from other towns and, modify and then ask the town attorney to make sure it's written properly.
Correct.
So I would I would gather information for the board and then it could go to the town attorney to, verify.
So if we got all of those steps done by the middle of September, you'd have enough time to adjust your grand list totals?
Yes, because I don't wrap up the grand list until January, but it would be nice to have it in place so that the farm operations would know in advance of me mailing out their declarations, which I mail out at the end of September.
Very good. You still there?
Yes.
I want to make sure I didn't inadvertently knock you off there. Okay, so that was one. Let's just go back to where we were. At least we have the timetable. in mind.
Okay, so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So let's see, where did you leave off here?
Oh, I
Uh,
thought Bill, did Bill just say something?
Your question answered?
No, you answered it.
Okay, okay. So the second attachment B is farm building. And we won't look at the two columns on the right last night, on the right this moment. I'll just explain the farm building. Again, I put it in order just so you can see what the benefit could be if it was increased. And the thing is with that is that a lot of farm operations have multiple farm buildings. So I just had to, my farm buildings are in my CAMA, real estate software, which then goes into the administrative software. So I had to, look at each farm building. So the current farm building exemption is correct as of Grand List 2023. So that just shows, but some of these are a combination of multiple buildings. So what you're not seeing here is how many buildings, because some of them may have, if you look at, for example, 224 Kennison, the fourth from the bottom, their value slightly, their assessed value goes over 100,000. So they're getting the 100,000, but there's a little bit more. And then the last three, or two of the last three, I think one has multiple farm buildings and one has two or three. So I'm not showing, but each one of these could potentially, they could use extra farm building exemptions if the town, did increase that value.
So what we see when we look at this is that the impact on the town, I'm going to say financially, in approving these would be, I got to look at it again here. If adopted, the total would be the 39,000 in attachment B, tax amount exempted. And then the 26,250 plus the 3,637.
Yes, but the thing is I put this together by the end of April. I had finished this, and the last two columns on attachment B was the analysis of if the town was looking at the Ag Commission's original proposal number 2, before we knew that the farm building could be up to 500,000, I was looking at all of their farmlands and their farm buildings and trying to calculate 50% of that. So what I don't have, well, really the last 4 are the ones that have assessment that would benefit from the additional farm building. So the last 2 columns, I'm not sure if the town or if the Ag Commission is even going to come back with that original proposal too.
I would not think that they're coming back with the original proposal. I would think that they're going to want to take advantage of what the legislation has brought forth. Correct? That'd be, I'm going to make an assumption, we support our farms.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm
Of
just
course,
loath to speak for the commission.
No,
without any-
you're not speaking. I'm whatever. I'm just putting out what I think is common sense, which is, of course, if the Ag Commission is going to pursue this, they would certainly want the most recent legislation applied. Am I making sense?
No, I agree.
Common sense?
It's the wrong term in this instance, but
Of course.
I'd rather look at the worst case scenario on tax impact,
Right, that would be the
given the
newest.
new legislation that's passed.
Yes, very
and
good.
What the potential is there.
Yep.
So what I can do tomorrow, and I will email it to all the board members, is the last 4 on the farm building. I didn't do the calculation here because when I had done this, I was focusing on the 50% abatement. So, and I didn't think to do that today.
Okay, if you do that, could you also add Luther?
Sure.
Thank you.
You could take it to the commission.
That would be lovely.
Okay, and yes, electronic copy of these. Definitely. You were good enough to give me nice colored prints today. But I think an electronic copy so that it can be forwarded out to them.
Yes, I'll email it, everything, and I had printed today knowing that I figured everybody would be there in
Mhm,
person.
yeah. Do we have any additional questions? Oh, wait, we've got one more thing here. We have the, oh, okay, so we did cover that. It was the amend to 1281, and that's Exhibit B.
Right.
Okay, now, do we have any about that one? Is there legislation that says what other farming operations should be taken into account? Am I making sense? Because right now we have what we had before. And so I haven't looked, I know you showed me at one point legislation, but I haven't looked to see if they have I'm almost going to say, what do they describe as a non-traditional farm?
Well, they actually have, I have the statute here. You know, it was dairy farm, fruit orchard, vineyard were the originals. Then it added vegetable farm, nursery farm, any farm which employs non-traditional farming methods, but including but not limited to hydroponic farming, tobacco farms,
Good.
and commercial lobstering business operations on maritime land.
So when the commission was looking at this, were they also talking about places that have farm stands and things like that that are smaller? I'm just asking.
No, that's a great question. So when the commission made this recommendation to examine this, I believe that our thought process was that if the Board of Selectmen was interested in pursuing the amendment to 1281, that the Ag Commission would be more than happy to work with the Board of Selectmen to try to identify what those non-traditional practices might be. But we didn't want to be prescriptive in saying, and this is what you should think about. We
Well,
wanted to
actually,
do
I'm
it as
only
a-
asking about what the legislation says.
The legislation goes no further than what was
We
just,
already have. Okay.
than what was just given. to
Yeah,
us.
I'd be a little careful about going beyond the legislation.
Yeah, it just says including but not limited to those particular items that were just listed.
All right, thank you for the clarification. Okay, so we have a plan?
We have a plan.
Okay.
I'd also like to get input and include on an informational basis, economic development.
Good point.
I'd love to have, when we have the public hearing, get their input on it too, because I think they go hand in hand.
For that matter, hang on just a second. So the acting chair of economic development is Margie Chady. And so the Chady farm is not on here because it is a different animal. Okay. Is it in the classification of a winery? Is a distillery?
Are wineries exempted?
Well,
Sorry,
Are wineries exempted? I always assumed they fall. within
I saw it
the-
on here. It says, excuse me,
So
I can give you some information on that tomorrow, Catherine.
super. All right. So what we'll do is we'll make sure to get this out to economic development as well. And then do you think we'll be prepared to talk about this at our next Board of Selectmen meeting in 2
Well,
weeks?
you got a meeting Wednesday, right?
we
Right,
will
he's got
have-
one Wednesday,
we
but
will
we've got
have-
another one coming up in a couple weeks. I'm planning out.
My belief is that the Ag Commission will have a communication to the Board of Selectmen on Thursday.
Good. So let's carry it on our agenda
Very good.
to our
And
next
we'll
regular
invite,
meeting.
we'll also invite economic development to the meeting.
What's the date of your next meeting?
It is
First and
2 weeks
third.
from tonight.
First and third Monday.
Oh,
So
just
fifth.
to
No,
confirm.
29th. Oh, good, I'm in town.
Okay,
Oh.
everybody stop for just a second. I am going to be out of the office I want to make sure it's not on the 29th.
Hold on that.
I think that'll be my last official thing before I go on a mini vacation. Give me a second. Yeah, I leave Tuesday. So the 29th I can do. Should be good.
Okay.
And then I'm going to my 55th high school reunion.
Well done.
I've never been to any. I think they'll be a little surprised. So, okay, so again, Lynn, you think we're comfortable making sure that we have enough information, we get it out to people so that the Ag Commission can take another look?
Yeah, and I think when you do your minutes from Wednesday's meeting, you'll make sure we have a copy, and it would be a good idea to get a copy to Lynn.
At a minimum, a copy of the motion
Yeah.
and whatever the document is you may have.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Well, I assume it'll just be legislative preferences.
It will likely follow a similar frame of reference to the
It'll be a
initial
recommendation.
communication.
it'll be a recommendation.
That's all we can do is.
We know
it'll be-
that.
Yeah, it'll be similar. to
That's all we
the-
let you do.
Yeah, it'll be similar to the initial recommendation.
Yes,
Technically, the initial recommendation actually only cited the statute and didn't give a dollar amount.
yeah,
We would like to get you an updated one.
very good. Good, that'll be good for us to work with, so thank you.
Thank you very much for putting it on the agenda. Really appreciate it.
All right, and I'm glad that you were able to attend.
Yeah.
That we had somebody from the Ag Commission. I think one of the lessons we learned before was, we definitely can't just have a discussion without having someone from the commission that's
Yeah.
reflective, can give us more background. So,
Yeah, I'm quite happy
we're supposed to be
sit-
working together.
I'm quite happy to sit quietly, but I'm also quite happy to answer questions.
Oh, we know that. Okay. All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lou.
Pleasure.
Lynn, thank you very much. And
Thank
thanks for
you.
all your hard work on this. I know that you've been working on it over a number of months. And then the legislation changed and you adjusted to it pretty quickly. So most appreciated.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
You're welcome.
She is such an awesome employee. Okay, and Paul, you're still on here. Good. All right, so I think we're down to
Have a good night, Lou.
first selectmen's
I'm gonna go back to chores.
back to first selectmen's briefing. Irene Rowley started her new position as the social services, youth services director today. We're getting her laptop updated and her email updated. She'll be using, as Melissa did, an email that's through the school because it gives her access. All of her accesses are set up that way. So that she has access to information she needs. It's privileged information or private information at the school. So we're doing that with Savage tomorrow. I think they already started today, actually. And Sherry Susie has been very instrumental in helping to get that set up. And Laura has been working with Irene on her paperwork. And she's receiving a copy of the personnel policies, which I will review with her once she's had an opportunity to read them. Which reminds me, we do need to update them. They're from 2008. So we need a couple of things added in there. We need nepotism policy. There's some other kinds of policies that would be a good idea to have. So, because I have talked to some people about, you can't hire your kid if you're on a commission, to get paid. So,
There were some variations of that I had discussed with town council.
yeah,
As
and
long as that kid would report to you or the first selectman and
well,
not,
that's a different story.
yeah, so
that would
there
be-
there are some variances there.
That one definitely. Okay. As if I need more people reporting to me. Thank you, Bill. Okay,
No problem.
I want to go through job postings. You can see the ad that's going, I have it right there in color. The ad that's going into the Citizen this month, next month. So I need these postings ready and out on our town website by the 1st of August when people receive their Citizen. Because we certainly couldn't put anything more than a list in there. All right, so senior center director, the current write-up shows 20, the one we have that Chris and I have shows 24 hours a week, which is 4 days a week, 6 hours a day. It's my understanding that it was increased to 30 hours, a 5-day week, which was 9 to 3 each day. And I think it included 6 hours of agent for the elderly. I'm not sure what the rationale was for
I think
increasing
you-
the
I
hours.
think
Is
you
that
did-
it?
You did that. That was during your last 10 years for selectmen.
I did. I have no recollection of that. And that would have been, I would have made sure that they had that. I'll go back through my records.
Yeah.
So what I do want to talk to you about, regardless of that, is again, I want to make sure that these are out there. I looked at the senior center, senior center director.
Is this something we should be talking about in an executive session if it's personnel?
No, it doesn't have to do with a particular individual. It has to do with
Okay.
what we want to do with the position.
Okay.
Okay,
It's
otherwise I
just
would
if
have
we're
done.
talking about changing hours or adjusting.
There's-
Typically, we do.
I
that
don't
in
see anything
executive.
wrong with us talking
Okay.
about that any more than it was changing hours at the transfer station.
Okay.
So one thought is, are the 30 hours a week adequate? And again, I wasn't sure if the senior center of the, bear with me, agent for the elderly position was included in that 30 hours. I don't have anything that tells me how many hours for that.
When I first came in a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
Melissa asked to see me and she said that she had been acting as both social services and agent for the elderly,
oh, I didn't realize that.
and that you had changed and taken the agent for
Don't
the
point at me,
elderly.
honey. Sorry, I'm teasing. That I had changed it so it was a
and gave
single
it to
position.
Kit. There were some other things that we had talked about because she wasn't real happy with that.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
I vaguely remember some transferring some stuff over to Ken.
Yeah,
Oh,
so she was doing 24 hours, and then I understand that there were 6 hours that were Melissa's that
That got transferred over to her?
got transferred over, and so that's how
we got
Kit ended up
Alright,
with 30
I will-
hours,
I
which
will
I
check.
inherited.
I'll check all the records because that would have been done, I would think that it would have been brought up in a Board of Selectmen.
It was
meeting
sometime shortly after Ralph.
Before I
resigned.
had my sea legs, maybe?
Before Ralph resigned. Just after Ralph
Yeah.
resigned.
Okay, well, you at least give me a time period to look at. Thank you. So I guess what I want to ask you is, you know, I'd like to have the senior center be, well, first of all, are we wed to having the two positions basically combined, the same person doing both positions? I think it's more convenient.
Mhm.
I just don't know all the qualifications for a agent for the elderly.
We've talked about this in different realms, but I've always had concerns when you have two important positions
And you lose them,
combined into one, and you have that person, for whatever reasons, leave.
like we have now.
You have two positions that are vacant, sometimes critical, sometimes
Okay,
not. So I think that's the downside of that. Being that the senior center director, now I'm gonna talk opposite of that, the senior center director works hand in hand with the commission on agent and also the seniors in town. It seems to make sense that that person would have that role also. Now, I do remember the time, I don't know if you remember Carrie Shebro, during my first tenure, she had been agent for the elderly for years, and that's all she did. She was a resident in town and.
was it a full-time position, a
No,
part-time
no,
position?
No, it was part-time, it was a minimum budget. I used to do her budget for her, and mostly it was just interaction with seniors that were in some sort of crisis or not, and she'd be a liaison.
Right,
So I guess there's two sides to look at that.
okay. All right, well, we have two different job descriptions. for them in terms of their responsibilities. So at this point in time, shall I put both of them out there? And
Yeah, the senior center director wears 2 hats.
because we may find
For a
that
total of 30 hours.
what you need for a senior center director is not necessarily what you need for an agent for the elderly.
Correct.
And we have the
So
two
one
different
thing that
positions
I'd
now.
like to have, and I think a couple of these you may have given us, but
But, and by the way, I don't think we combined them. We just said the same person's going to do both jobs.
yeah, I'm not so sure that there wasn't a note from you in Kit's personnel file when that happened.
I'll look. Thank you.
But can Roger and I get copies of each of these job descriptions?
You
And,
certainly may.
I mean, the first thing you're gonna do is get an ad in. And then it's gonna be, I
I
assume.
have 2 weeks,
It
less than
says
2
it could be
weeks.
picked up at the selectman's office.
What's picked up at the selectman's office?
Job descriptions,
No, they're gonna go online. They're gonna go up on the town website.
okay, so you won't have hard copies.
Did I say that they were in there? That they would? I thought I did.
Job descriptions and
Oh, yeah, said where they'd be.
applications are posted to the Ashford website.
And I also show them what the link is if they go into the Citizen Online.
But I'd like to, just to refresh my memory, get copies of each of the job descriptions.
Right, and that's what I'll do before we get to our next meeting,
Yeah,
because I want to make sure that I'm able to get them out there by August 1st.
try to do that in your spare time.
I will, I'll try. I don't sleep much. Not these days. I very much miss Chris.
It's all good to sleep.
Okay. All right, so, and again, the other part of this was, do we want to increase the hours for senior center director? Right now, it's limited to 9 to 3. And the way it's done now is the person has to submit a timesheet. So 30 hours a week is that full-time?
30 hours a week or more, which
Which is what it apparently was for
is-
seniors.
Is the point, the watermark for having to give benefits.
Right, right.
with
I
the
can't
state
imagine that-
labor board.
Is it 30 or 32?
I think it's 30,
It's 30.
unless it's changed.
It's 30. What
Used to be
happened,
30.
I think, was in our particular situation, we were looking at how do we have somebody doing both jobs and that would, and because it was basically
Mhm.
that many hours, it became, in a sense, a position with benefits.
Mhm.
Um,
Personally,
Personally-
because we had what were called 0.91 positions, and these were people, because we had 35 and they were.
can't quite hear that. So,
We just verify that it's
30.
30, not 32, because we had,
I already
point.
did.
okay.
It was
all right.
30. So, but I'll, you know what? I'll double check myself because
Okay.
my brain's a sieve right now.
No.
Okay, so that's what I'll do is make sure you have copies of all the job descriptions. Unfortunately, in terms of changing the one that we have, Chris has that one, and that one says 24 hours. So I need to look, I'll look for that other one.
I think if we're going to get into a discussion about extending the director's hours,
Yep,
that we, as a board, we ought to have a discussion. Do we want to extend a single person's hours? Or do we want to think about bringing on a part-time person? Because I think.
I think that's a
part-time
very good
person,
very good point.
if you have a situation of illness, which we run into frequently over there, at least you have a backup kind of built in that knows what's going on. We've been lucky enough to have Tess get familiarized and been doing a yeoman's job over there, but maybe we want to think about formalizing that.
I agree, because the other part of it is that some events go on longer than after 3. And it would be nice to have, someone there while they're going on. I mean, even the dime bingo that is part of, what the town does,
Yeah,
is something that goes on to at least 3:30.
we
So in the
have to-
past, what we've done is that our senior center director would have a timesheet and that that would be put in, you know, it becomes extra hours that are earned. So then later on, she can take those hours off.
Yeah, I mean, it was worked out in comp time. She also said she
Comp
had an
time.
arrangement that she got paid extra. That's why we would get these sporadic. I worked 15 minutes over, a half hour over. which
Right.
Was not the best scenario.
No, it's not. It's uncomfortable for me
Yeah.
here because if I have a conversation with a person that goes past 3 o'clock,
Right.
I'm charged at least 15 minutes. Even if it's on the phone.
Yeah, I never
Yeah.
quite understood how that. can
Yeah,
work.
not everybody does that, but that's the situation
So,
there.
I mean, particularly, and we've had discussions in the past
Yeah,
about pro and cons of having that center open 7 days a week
I know,
on weekends. I
which I
mean,
think is
So
at a minimum 6 days a
I
week.
think we have some homework to do on options, how to improve services over there.
Thank you. Good suggestions. All right, let me try to, I'm having a little trouble moving down on my
Unfortunately,
document.
everything we talk about has money implications.
Yeah. So I just need to get my mouse over to, here. It's not easy when you have 3 monitors up. Okay, building and land use clerk. This is another one. From my perspective, the hours need to align with those of the other offices. The current position does not do that in its description. And also, I've had a conversation with our union representative down in town clerk's office. And I'd like to have a conversation with the union heads about making the building and land use clerk and the assistant town clerk non-union positions. I guess the history of this is that there used to be more people here and, you know, extra people in the tax collector's office and in the assessor's office. So there were actually more people here that were basically part of the union, and that was a long time ago. And the positions we have here now they don't make sense to be part of the union. So I'm gonna have the conversation unless you're averse to me having that.
No, that's a whole other conversation and protocol that's gotta be.
Okay,
I think the hours of the clerk, and I know there
The
were
clerks are fine.
exceptions, there were exceptions made in the past.
oh, you mean the building clerk?
The building clerk, I think you have to coordinate with the hours that the town.
That's what
office
I'm saying.
building is open.
Thank you. Absolutely.
We kind of varied from that because of
Of the
personal
situation.
situations,
Mhm.
but I don't think I think the goal is to have that coordinated with everybody else's hours.
Okay. Emergency Management Director. I'm working with Michael and Tom. And we really need a person with the right background who can work well with the public and the agencies involved.
Roger Phillips, yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Anyway, with that one, I am working with them. I've got a job description for the position. Also, I know that they are willing to help train whoever we bring in. It'll be interesting to see who wants to apply. Okay, Public Works Custodian Maintenance, that is a budgeted open position. It's been there for a while, and we need to fill that because we need the person in here, you know, doing the things that need to be done. The Inland Wetlands Agent, we're using Jim Larkin from NECOG. That's all taken care of until we hire a new agent. He's already started. In fact, our building clerk, Katie Connolly, was able to add inland wetlands applications to the permit link system used by building officials, which is fantastic because I guess everything else was manual. You know, what was being done was manual. And this way it's part of the system and we got it for free. She worked with them to get us added. We also have Jim reviewing potential permit formats that we can present to Lenny LaGloria, the Inland Wetlands Commission, that'll be in that system. So there may be some questions that are a little different that they'd like to have on there. And you're looking at ones that he knows are pretty good in other towns. I guess Eastford has something that's fairly good. I think it was Eastford. NECOG director search, I'm participating in the interview process. We had a couple of interviews today, and more to come on that.
You said NECOG?
NECOG.
Because I thought at the beginning of the meeting, you said Eastern Highland, which I was surprised.
You know what, I might have. It's been a
Okay.
long day.
Okay.
Um,
I had heard NECOG, but in the past. but I
yeah,
hadn't
it's
heard-
NECOG.
Okay.
Our building officials. Okay, so I reviewed some complaints from the public about delayed responses to phone calls and email requests. There were some things out on Ashford Community Connections Facebook site. Actually, someone who was complaining that when all was said and done, and I actually told him he could text me or call me. I went out there and said that, and ultimately he did, and he found out he had already discovered that he was still trying to contact Randy Heckman. So no wonder he wasn't getting a response, but we've had some other slow responses and slow updates getting into the system, the permit system. So I talked with our two building, I don't know if we call them building officials, but our two building inspectors. And one of the things they have is they use their business card. Sometimes they'll be in uniform from Bolton. People think they work for Bolton, not for us. So I made it clear to them that, no, you work for Ashford. We have contracted for your services. And that we want the public to realize that, yes, they're working for Ashford and not necessarily out of Bolton. So they were using Bolton emails and whatever, and not the Ashford email. So Rich McKinnon is going to be using the Ashford email. And that's how they're going to do their responses to people. And their identification, when they go to show people who they are, they say Bolton on them. We're going to get them a few business cards that say, and they have to show identification, that say Ashford, so that they know that. And let's
Did
see,
you discuss any of this with Jim at all?
it was not necessary.
Okay.
I would only go to Jim if it was a significant issue
Okay.
that I felt he needed to be involved in
Okay.
resolving. And as a courtesy to the two people that are working with us, I just talked with them, and it was a nice conversation. In addition, let's see, and both of them are putting me on copy for emails where people are getting answers to their questions, at least for now. Okay, another thing that's come up is establishment of a multi-jurisdictional shelter hosted by Mansfield and the American Red Cross to support Ashford, Coventry, Mansfield, and Willington in the event of a widespread emergency. I would like to add this to the agenda for us to be able to discuss it.
So moved.
Thank you.
Aye.
Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, we can discuss it now, or I can just move it down to the bottom of the agenda.
Let's talk about it now while it's on our memory.
Okay, well, I still have you
We're on a
fresh.
roll.
Oh, we're still awake.
Okay, so Demis, Mike Caplet, is spearheading this thing, which has been going around for years. I believe it's gone through, let's see, Ralph, Mike, this has been discussed, and even you, Bill. Okay, at least that's what I heard from Mike, Michael. It's the
Never brought
best.
up to me, but that's fine.
I'm sorry, okay. It's the best and least expensive way to provide shelter to our public in such an emergency, a crisis. We simply can't afford, we cannot duplicate this on our own. So the host community, which is Mansfield, would maintain the shelter for all, including pets, arrangements for pets and that kind of thing. And each supporting municipality will assist in meeting the needs of shelter residents. This is for Ashford, Coventry, Mansfield, and Willington. And it's in the event of a widespread emergency, which we haven't had in a long time. It's been approved by, what they've got is approved by Homeland Security and approved by the other 3 municipalities. And what I would like to do is move forward with it with this municipality as well. So That, and as quickly as possible to get on board. They're all set.
Do we have any idea of financial impact of this?
The financial impact, I'm gonna give you a copy of what they've got. Financial impact is, let me just see where I put it. It's buried under here. Actually, it's in such small print because they had trouble. They went through it with me today. So let me at least read off some of it to you. This is the facility would be in Mansfield to provide shelter for the residents of the 4 municipalities. All individuals will be accepted at the shelter regardless of the location of their primary residence. The EMDs from the municipalities will develop what's called Appendix A, which will list potential shelter locations and expected capacities. One of the things we'll have on our Exhibit A is going to be Ashford School, but I don't think, and neither do Michael and Tom, think that the facilities that we had before have been maintained or even still exist. Maybe the showers do, but what you'd need for this kind of an emergency is much more than what they have there. So shelter support, each supporting community will agrees to assist in operating, staffing, and supplying the shelter as requested by the Red Cross or the host community. If the Red Cross is managing the shelter, a separate Red Cross shelter agreement must be executed. The emergency management directors for each municipality shall communicate with each other on a regular basis regarding shelter operations and needs. To the extent possible during the emergency, the host community shall provide lights, heat, generator power, and internet connections for the shelter. The municipalities shall maintain a pet shelter near or adjacent to the shelter, to be managed by the host community's animal control officer, and or an ACO agreed upon by the municipalities. They'll be responsible for scheduling trained staff and volunteers provided by the municipalities. Sheltering for children, the elderly, and other functional needs. Each municipality shall be responsible for assisting the shelter in meeting the needs of all shelter residents, including addressing the need for effective communication and personal care assistance for those with functional needs. Supporting communities shall provide assets and resources such as shelter boxes, cots, and children's supplies as available within each municipality. Now, I know we have some cots. We're going to look at what we do have for cots because we anticipate that we're going to need more. We'll find out what that shelter would need. I think we'll also need some to have on hand in the event we ever use the school, and make sure that we have some that are for not geriatric, but those who are disabled. There's a different requirement. I have at least a couple of those. So I'm going to check with Mike Malady on what we do have. Malady. The municipality shall direct residents to bring their own medicine, personal care items, baby supplies, and sleeping accommodations, pillows, blankets, sleeping bags. That's right. What we have at the school are mats. That's what's expected. And that's
We
why.
have cots around here somewhere.
Yeah, we do. I think they're in that little closet, one of the little closets that the scouts use. I think I saw them the other day.
Yeah, there were
In
100
in
or so
Milton,
at one time.
They're up on a thing, but we don't know if they're adequate.
Not so sure they weren't moved to Public Works,
Where?
up in their loft. Something was moved up there.
Okay,
Check with Casey.
I will. Food. The goal of the shelter feeding will include 3 meals per day with snacks and water available 24 hours a day for residents and workers. Municipalities shall work with the Red Cross to provide food for the shelter. If requested, the municipalities may assist in procuring food, including requesting the use of USDA funds located in the municipalities from the State Department of Administrative Services, DAS. The Red Cross or municipality party to the LOA may establish a catering agreement with the host school food service agency, Mansfield, actually, Smith, or department to prepare meals using food supplies on hand. Additional municipal resources may be needed to support the special dietary needs of shelter residents, which may include Meals on Wheels, local hospitals, nursing homes, restaurants, and caterers. The parties shall work together to seek reimbursement for all eligible expenses by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, in the event of a presidentially declared major disaster. To the extent possible, the municipalities shall work with employees in advance of any emergency or disaster to predetermine potential staff and food availability. Cafeteria staff from the host community school district may assist volunteers in preparing and serving meals. If requested, cafeteria personnel from the supporting communities may also assist in meal preparation or service. They're going to follow local health guidelines in the, all of that preparation. Healthcare. It shall be the goal of the parties to have healthcare professionals on site at the shelter. If needed, the Red Cross and municipalities may request the assistance of one or more volunteer civil preparedness forces, including but not limited to Medical Reserve Corps, MRCs, or the State Disaster Behavioral Health Response Network. Any such request shall be made through the host community's EMD to the Demas Region 4 office. Cots. The host community shall make available for use at the shelter any and all cots assigned to the town. Other municipalities may be requested to supply additional cots as needed or to assist in replenishing the trailer supply as used at the shelter. Cots that are located closest to the shelter shall be used first if possible. They shall, the municipalities within Region 4 shall work together and with the Demas Regional Office to maintain a regional cot inventory to be updated by July 4th of each year. The reason I'm telling you this is because I don't have an amount. I'm just letting you know where we're supposed to support or what we're supposed to support. Police support. Each supporting community shall provide a police presence at the shelter as requested by the host community. EMD shall work with available law enforcement resources to coordinate a schedule for appropriate police coverage.
Law enforcement agent.
That's right, chief of police.
I'm sorry?
You're the chief of police
Yeah,
here in
so
town.
you're-
Get
Believe
your
me,
cot ready.
I know I will be there, okay? If we have, well, we're talking about our major disasters.
yeah.
So,
I've already been with-
within available resources, transportation, the host community and supporting communities shall coordinate to provide accessible transportation to and from the shelter as requested. Shelter counts shall be conducted daily and shall be coordinated with the Red Cross. These counts shall be entered locally on web EOC and kept as current as possible. Communications, the host community will attempt to establish a dedicated line at the shelter for the exclusive use of the shelter for external calls. The municipality shall also provide one or more cell phones dedicated for use by the shelter manager. These numbers shall not be publicly distributed, but shall only be provided to the municipality's CEOs, EMDs, and other key state, local, or Red Cross officials. It's anticipated that amateur radio operations will also be present at the shelter to the extent possible. Each municipality shall be responsible for the notification to the residents of the location of the center shelter. And in fact, I got some names of our amateur radio operators as well. Communications, we already got that. Just there's one more thing. Liability, to the extent possible, the parties to this agreement shall deploy volunteer and paid personnel that are covered under the provisions of the party's own insurance and or liability and workers' compensation provisions of Connecticut general statutes, sections, yada, yada. The host community shall maintain appropriate levels of liability insurance for the use of the facility as a shelter. The Red Cross shall maintain insurance in accordance with the organization. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you were there. What were you saying? Oh, he's gone. Hi, I see Cindy's still on. And again, this has been approved by Mansfield, Coventry, and Wellington, and we're the last kid on the block.
Is there any startup monies needed or any ongoing expenditures?
We have, and it's
in
interesting,
anticipation of a-
when I was talking with Michael and Tom, they were saying, we have $10,000 a year that is set aside for EMD oriented stuff. So some of those monies are available. The,
Have they projected any?
they have not
cost?
projected costs. But it's, we would not be able to take care of our people unless we're part of something bigger.
Mhm.
You know, we just couldn't. We'd have to do all of this ourselves.
I mean, we do have an emergency management plan. that
Yes, which
Mike
they're
used to
updating,
keep,
I
where
might add.
we- Excuse me,
Which they're updating.
and there had been shelters in town that we anticipated if the need arose, that we would be able to shelter people. The school was one. Knowlton Hall was one. I think St. Philip's Center was one.
I don't know about St. Phil's, but I can tell you this, they're not on the state's list.
Okay.
This would be on
I'm-
the state's
I'm
list.
not talking about the state list. I'm talking about what we had talked about.
No,
if there was an
I
emergency
understand
here
that,
in
but
town.
when, even with the heat warning,
Yeah,
we're not listed. At all, as somebody, when you call 211, they're not gonna tell them to come to us.
Hmm.
Which is sad. Again, I really would like us to do this. Otherwise, we're gonna
Now,
be
when-
on our
when-
own.
When you say these other towns have already committed, how have they committed?
They signed the agreement.
But they know what the costs are?
No. We'll have to work through the costs. It's not like they,
Is that the agreement?
this is, yes, this is the agreement. It's just in such small print. I was saving you a little trouble.
No, I appreciate that. I was thinking more of sending it off to town council to take a look at the agreement. get their
If we do
input.
the, first of all,
I think so, at least a couple of those towns they represent. I know Wellington they represent anyway. So they're.
right, and they've already agreed. So
Do we know that they've got their town council to sign off on it?
don't know, Red Ryder. All I know is that they have
Well,
already
can we
agreed
put
to
it-
be part of this.
Can we put it on the agenda for our next meeting and in the interim, send that off to town council? I'm just concerned.
I'll
that-
send it off to town council, but this is Demus's thing. This is not something that our town council. This is emergency management through Demus.
But it's a contract, an agreement. that commits-
Okay, but we're not gonna be able to adjust it if the other ones have already signed off. I can do that. I'm just trying,
I
within
mean,
the
we just heard
boundaries.
about this a half hour ago, so.
I know, and I knew that you weren't going to, that you weren't going to do this. That's why I
Don't
think
make
I
me out
had,
the bad guy on this. I'm
no,
just
you're not the
trying to-
bad guy. You're never the bad guy,
Well,
okay? No, I'm just trying to point out the fact that this came from Demus. This didn't come from some company off
Yeah.
somewhere.
yeah,
And Demus is part of our overall emergency management organization and plan.
But
So
yeah,
that's why I wasn't as concerned, because this is what they put forth.
Mm.
And actually, apparently, it's been talked about for years,
Mm.
and I think they put this out about 6 months ago. I just didn't know. So, and that's why the other towns have looked at it. So I can send it off to town council. I just don't know what town council would do with it when it is
I
that
tried to make a
organization.
habit of whatever agreements we were signing as a town. To at
So-
least the town council had them on file,
Right.
and we've talked about this. as
Yes,
well
I,
as the
and
town
I
clerk
typically, I do the same thing, Bill.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's all I'm saying. Let's let them take a quick look at it.
Okay. okay. I will. All right, so we will have this on our next,
Tanaka a call and see what,
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'll give Tanaka a call and see what
I cannot hear you.
I'll give Pete Tanaka a call.
Okay,
And see if he has anything to add that, or insight in terms of
I'm-
what they've done.
I'd be amazed if he does. They have trouble just getting a budget out. Okay,
Okay.
and doing that properly.
No,
They are
I'll-
calling us for
I will try
advice.
it. I will try it.
So I know you're friends. Okay, that's one. The next thing is, I obtained ServSafe Food Protection Manager certification
Congratulations.
Well done, all right.
because we don't have one. I already had started the process when Kit was still here. I had to
Okay.
wait. And I did that July 1st and took an exam.
Okay,
After reading the book thoroughly a few times, taking the tests they had, and then sitting through their class, and then the proctored exam. So I'll be overseeing use of the Ashford Senior Center kitchen until we hire a permanent senior center director who will be required to obtain the same certificate. That's one. I will also be working with Sherry York to improve volunteer awareness and compliance with required food safety protocols for Parks and Rec sponsored events. And I'm going to give you an example. If I understand correctly, virtually everyone who had a food booth in last year's Ashford Family Day was cited by EHHD, by the health department. In addition, the kitchen has been used outside of normal senior center hours by Parks and Rec without oversight by a certified food protection manager. Can't do that. Can't cook on the stove, can't do that. The most they can do is like with ASCO, is they can use the hot dog steamer and they can use the microwave. But even with that, you should have somebody around. And that's why I was concerned about the senior center director hours.
Mhm.
And like you said, having a part-time person, which would be awesome. For that matter, I just want to share with you that our former senior center's director's certification expired on February 5th. She did not take the exam to renew it until Monday, June 18th. It takes 10 days to receive exam results. So the June 19th Senior Center 30th anniversary picnic, including cooking in the kitchen, was conducted without certified food protection manager oversight. I also confirmed with with Eastern Highlands that we were not in compliance with required food safety practices for the grill cooking performed outside. And when you are cooking outside, you are no longer in the kitchen, which is the certified place. And there should have been a washing station. There should have been some other things there. And I didn't know about the washing station at the time, but I was concerned about how the food was being handled. And it was awkward to try and go, hey, wait a minute, I don't think that's right at the time. So anyway, so just letting you know, and that's why I got the certification. I've already informed Eastern Highlands and informed them I'm going to work with Parks and Rec as well. It's my understanding when Parks and Rec, for our different events that we have, and even with Family Day, apparently the different groups put their whatever it is together to give to her, and she enters the information into the Eastern Highlands system to get the permit for that particular group to handle food. And so I'm trying to find out how to get access so I can see all the permits, because apparently it's one of those things where you go in and it goes, my stuff, you can only see your stuff. And so I want to make sure that I can see what's going on. And here's part of the reason why. I'm going to be out of the office from Tuesday, the 30th of this month to August 5th. As an aside, so will Tess. Okay, she's not a food protection manager, but I'm letting you know that I'm going to have a substitute in there for Tess
7:30 to 8.
to August 5th. I'm returning August 5th, which is Monday.
Okay.
And it'll be we'll have our Board of Selectmen meeting. And let's see. One of my concerns is that the Parks and Rec wants to use the senior center kitchen and outside area to roast pork in a smoker starting at 6 a.m. for that night's concert. It's a Park and Rec's thing where they're doing the cooking. It's the second to last concert. And we won't have anyone certified to oversee it. I'm checking with Eastern Highlands to find out if a certified food handler, different certification, is adequate. If so, I'll ask someone I know if she can oversee it as a part-time employee. I have used her as a part-time employee to fill in when Tess isn't there at the center. So if that works, fine, I'll just designate her. And that will hopefully accommodate them in some way. But still, he's gonna start work at 6 a.m. And that's why I want to make sure that we have that checklist together so they know what they should have there. And if I sound like a nudge about this, I actually know someone who got one of the 8 diseases that I learned about that you get from fecal oral contamination. That's people not washing their hands when they go to the bathroom. And this person had a 16-year-old boy who got sick from eating at I think a restaurant. I know it was a restaurant. And he had a small cut on his gum, his lower gum. What happened was not only was he very, very ill, he lost all 4 teeth in the bottom of this because it killed his teeth. And he, as a 16-year-old boy, think about this for a minute, you've been that, had to have a partial plate put in, removable plate, until he was old enough and his jaw had finished growing to have implants. So it's no small thing, and people die from this stuff. And that is one thing that I really learned from, you don't hear about all the people dying. So, and particularly in our case of our senior center, it's a very vulnerable population. If we screw up even once, it's a big deal. So, and then I have one more thing to add to the agenda. I would like to discuss changing Board of Selectmen terms of office from 2 years to 4, just to discuss it. And the Board of Selectmen has a critical role in everything that's going on in town, and I'm looking at some stability or more stability. So if we could add that to the agenda to have a conversation about it, at least get your feelings on it.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So when I looked at this, and believe me, it has nothing to do with me. I don't even know if I'm going to run again. Okay. Haven't decided. It has to do with minimizing the loss of continuity here. When you bring in somebody new, not only is a new first selectman in particular, but even new members of the board, you've been through it. I went through it. You've been doing this so long, you don't feel it anymore. I don't think, because you've been everywhere. The new first selectman, it takes quite a while to become familiar with role, initiatives, budget management, and considerations around that. And we lose momentum as a result. So any programs we think we're starting and then it gets handed over to the next person, it's like, what is it? And the continuity that we've had is Chris. And, we're not always going to have that kind of continuity. She's trained, I don't know how many selectmen in reality. But the other thing is that I saw what it was. There's different management styles. Ralph, when he came back as first selectman, it was too much for him because of the changes that had been made that, in those 2-year stints, that other people started doing some of the roles of a first selectman because it was abdicated to them. The reality is that if you change every 2 years, it's like, okay, who are we going to have on the board in any kind of continuity? So, you spend your first 6 months to 12 months just getting your feet under you to actually know what to do. And when we stop and think about it, let's just assume none of us were on the board. And you got new people, or you have at least one new person, or you have a new selectman who has never done this before. I know what that felt like. And even with my Board of Finance experience and working so closely, in particular with Ralph over the years, it was still a whole new world.
Just quick question. I heard the term, pop up multiple times, and
What terms?
the term, that when we talk about a town manager.
Actually, what Ralph was looking at, excuse me, was a town council with a town manager. I think, but you could have a board of selectmen with a town manager. And my personal opinion is we are laymen.
Mhm.
We have
Yeah.
experience in different areas, some more than most. But we're laymen, and it's a popularity contest when you have an election.
Mhm.
It really is. You can put your skills forth and everything, and they can look at that
Mhm.
if they don't know who you are and try to find out and all of that. But the reality is we're laymen. And I'd rather have an expert in here, a pro, but you have to pay for them. And still, you could still have your board of selectmen. So I think that requires a legislative change, and I cannot remember. I can look at that as well. But that's, we'll have an election coming up next year. I don't know if that change can be made in that amount of time. I only wanted to talk to you about it to just
I mean,
see what
she's
your
talking,
thinking was.
Would you be interested in the 4-hour stint?
The 4 year.
4-year, 4 hour, 4 years stint?
I've
I mean,
been a proponent of a 4 year term since the early 90s.
yeah,
When I took
Ah.
office in 91,
Good.
I had 5 predecessors that hadn't, 2 of them didn't even hold office for full terms. But
So
I had 5 predecessors.
you know what that's like when you're trying to.
Steve Ravitsky ran for 1 term,
Mhm.
refused to go again. George Quirk came in for 1 term, refused to go again. In between there, Bob Aikens
Mhm.
was first selectman, resigned after 6 months.
Mhm.
Paula Faulkner came in, she did a year and I had 5.
I didn't know that.
And the continuity is exactly the problem. I used to kid, but kid on the square. You get to change all the names on the bank account and get all to know the players the first year,
Mhm.
and then plan on getting out of it the way it had been going for the next year.
Or you're running for
Or
office
you're
again.
lamed up,
Yeah.
or you're running for office.
I had someone contact me that said, you should be out. I was first selectman. You should be out every day at 3 o'clock knocking on doors during the campaign season. And I said, and Bill, you'll get a kick out of this. I said, I can't do that. I'm working.
Right,
Okay.
people don't.
And the
realize.
person said, Catherine, if you don't do that, you won't have that job. And that's when you beat me. So it was interesting because it actually proved to be in some ways true. There wasn't that opportunity.
But I think it's important that there is that continuity there, and you're more apt to get a more stable situation with a 4 year term. As far as a town manager, I looked into that. And the last time I looked at, the average salary was between 150 and 200.
You're right.
And we're just talking off the cuff here, but what I had been told by people that have been in the business even longer than I had been in, you get one of 2 things. You get somebody, and if your objective is to get the continuity where you have,
Mhm.
it's self-defeating because you get at the
Somebody,
prices that Ashford could afford to
yeah,
pay.
we get them trained and then they go to another town.
You get somebody that's just out of school
Mhm.
with a new degree.
Mhm.
They get 2 years in their belt, maybe they get 4, maybe they get 3. And a town of Mansfield offers them $230, $1,000 a year, they go, and you don't hold them against it.
No, no.
It's the
No.
same reason why we lose an assessor or we lose a tax collector. The
Mhm.
competition is even much worse than it was
Mhm.
back in the 90s when we were first addressing this. Or instead of a new graduate, you get somebody at the end of their career.
Mhm. Looking to close out.
And they're looking to do something just for a couple of years and
Mhm. We've had that with our, and back when we had that with our superintendents at school.
it's the same thing. The financial structure of our town and the formula that it is right now for how we pay our taxes.
Mhm.
We are limited on what we can pay our people. Our people are all worth more than they're being paid.
Mhm.
Many
Right,
of them, they live in town. It's a convenience for them. They
Mhm.
love this town.
right.
A lot of them, it's strictly a business.
Yeah.
For those people that it's a business, they move on. So you commit to making that commitment to going with a town manager and paying 150 or 200,000 to start,
Mhm.
and then you lose them anyway.
So I'm actually, I didn't know that you experienced this. And it's only those who've actually experienced it that really understand how much is required, that you have to learn on the fly to even, one, you gotta keep things moving. So it gives you, it doesn't give you an opportunity, especially within a 2-year thing,
Mhm.
term. You have to keep things moving that were already in flight. You don't know everything about them. That's pretty awkward, when you need to speak to them, so to speak. And the other part of it is that while you're doing that, you're supposed to be coming up with ways to improve things. And in that 2-year stint, when you've got part of the second year where you've got to be out doing other stuff and pulled away or whatever, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Well, it's something that we should talk about.
Okay.
I don't see it happening overnight.
No, not at
And
all.
I think we'd have to do a bit of research, but because I have looked into this before myself,
Yeah,
it's possible you can do it by ordinance.
I'll find out with towns that have done it.
Well, also your town council can leave you some direction on
Oh,
that.
true, true.
But I
And-
don't think it has to be a legislative act, in Hartford.
No, that would be if we were going to a town charter and
And
having,
that's a whole other
Yeah.
animal in itself that
yes,
some people have been proponents of. We're just in that gray area because of our financial setup, the size of the town,
right.
and what our capabilities are for paying people. We're limited.
Right. Thank you. This was just to discuss so that
Yeah.
we put it on the table to
Yeah.
see what it would look like
Yeah.
or get your feelings on it at least. Okay. And like I said, this part of the meeting is long. Okay, so I am now down to, incredibly enough, acceptance of the minutes of regular meeting. Oh, and by the way, Katie's last day is Friday. And I will tell you that working with her, I've gotten nothing but great service.
Good.
And she has taken initiative on a number of things. I am actually sorry to see her go because had I had the opportunity to have more time with her, having now seen that she has assessed things down in the building department, and she talked with me about, here are the issues that we've encountered that we need to do something about. And then taking the initiative to get our wetlands agent into the permalink system, and how she's worked with the other people down there, it'll be a loss. So I hope we are able to find someone who is good at this.
We wish her the best.
Yes. And it was just like you said, a better job opportunity. And with Melissa, the same thing. So, but they've served us well. And Melissa, by the way, is continuing, I believe she's continuing to work with us a bit.
Mhm.
So we are going to pay her for the time that she does that. She'll put in an hourly thing. And we're paying 90% of the salary to our new person. So that works out okay.
Where are we at in terms of Joe? How much activity has Joe been in with the town?
And I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Joe, our former
Joe?
state, our former foreman,
Kalinowski.
has he been,
No,
okay,
not to my knowledge.
curious, I haven't heard anything, so I just. asked the
No,
question.
I haven't either.
I
at
saw him
all
for the
since I've
first
been
time.
first
I was
selectman.
walking into the bank
Mhm.
on last Friday and I saw him there. I was heading for an appointment, so I didn't have a chance to talk to him.
Yeah.
He looked good.
Oh, that's good.
He's driving a new truck.
Is he driving a new truck?
Yeah, nice truck.
Okay. Okay,
But we
acceptance.
open up these things, I just never hear that we kind of
No,
close them,
right.
you know?
Okay. Acceptance of the minutes of the meeting of June 3rd, regular meeting of June 3rd, 2024.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Regular meeting of June 17th, 2024.
I don't remember them, but I'll move them.
Thank you.
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, special meeting of June 26th, 2024.
Those I have in front of me, and I'll move acceptance.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Motion's approved. Okay, here from boards, commissions, and committees. Conservation Commission, I had a reach out today from Loretta Roble. So I'm just going to read you this. I put something, I've got a little blurb I'm putting in the Ashford Citizen. I already wrote it up. Deep, there have been some questions about some forestry that was going on in the Natchog Forest that was done over in the, hang on, the section on Perry Hill near Craft Road. So this is being put in the Citizen just to clarify for people what's going on.
Mhm.
And Deep Division of Forestry is implementing a commercial forest product harvest to facilitate oak resilience on a portion of Natchog State Forest in Ashford. Its goals are to release oak and pine seedlings, improve stand growth, and enhance structural diversity. The harvest was prescribed in the agency-approved Forest Resource Management Plan for the West Ashford block of Natchog and is being overseen by certified foresters from the Connecticut Division of Forestry. The section on Perry Hill near Craft Road was completed in February 2024. The entire project is expected to be completed within 6 months. Ashford's Conservation Commission recently did a site walk with the forester and saw some seeding regeneration. The commission and Babcock Library are planning for an informational meeting in the fall to educate the public about state plans for continued forest management and respond to questions. Just letting you know that's going on, and we're letting the public know. And so that's Conservation Commission. And I reviewed the write-up with Loretta. I had her put give me some input, and I put it together. Old business. And we lost Cindy. Ashford School roof replacement project status. We are on schedule. We got to compliment the general contractor. Remember, well, the general contractor, actually during one of my meetings, I got a compliment from Rich McKinnon about interactions with our general contractor and their team. He said when he's gone out there, they've been extremely helpful. They showed him everything they were doing, invited him up and whatever, and they've just been doing things the way they're supposed to do them, which was wonderful to hear. The Ashford School roof replacement bonding status. We have a note already put together, and the process has already gone on to select the group that we're going to have our note with. And I just didn't go back fast enough to get the name of the company. We worked with, bear with me, Mark Chapman and Glenn Rabacki. They were fantastic. They
Mark's
helped
terrific.
move this through quickly. They really, I could not be more pleased. And so our note is for $4,015,560, and that includes the, oh crap, I don't have that with me. It includes and it's a 4.5% interest rate. So it includes I just don't have it here. That is separate from soft costs, I believe.
Soft cost.
Oh, yeah, soft costs are in there too. But the note itself is that much money
Soft costs are not included in the
in
reimbursement.
the
from
reimbursement. They
state,
are included in
But
the
they
note.
are in the bond.
So, like I said, they've done a great job, and the money will be available on the 23rd, I think it is, which is in time for our next round of bills. Discuss and/or act on Ashford School roof solar options, power purchase agreement versus municipal ownership. We have to do something on this soon. We're again being pressed in terms of trying to make sure that we are timely in terms of what we want to get done there, if we want to get that done.
I know you wanted to call a meeting of the parties.
Right, and the people have been on vacation.
I'm still in favor of calling a public hearing as soon as possible.
Okay.
Get public input on it. And making a decision on how we're gonna go as it relates to leasing, purchase, need or not need, or just get public input on it, because I'm still getting a lot of opinions every time it comes up.
Right, what I really want is for us to work with the expert so that when what's put forth is in enough of a summarized version for general consumption, because it does, we already been through this, we got caught up in the details. And to make sure that it's very,
I agree with that, but
Obvious.
I mean, time is just going real quick.
right, okay. All right, but I wanted to really make sure that we had our group fully informed before we go in front of the public. So that we understand truly who's getting the money.
Mhm.
Okay, how are these savings gonna be applied?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go through a little bit more of that and then we'll have our meeting. Okay, public hearing. Because when we do a public hearing and then a town meeting immediately following, we typically have what we would recommend. Correct?
Usually, I mean,
They
we
look
don't,
to-
we
they
don't
look
have
to
to have
us.
the town meeting right after, but in this case. it may
But they
make
do look
sense.
to us to what we would recommend.
Usually they're looking for direction.
Yeah. Okay, I want to make sure that we're all kind of going in the same direction. Finalized town building use fee schedule and Ashford Food Bank,
Can we go back to
Ashford School replacement, a roof replacement?
yeah, I had
Sure.
sent you an email. I know you've been awful busy and you asked me not to bug you
When?
for a couple of weeks.
I didn't ask you not to bug me.
A couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
Asking that we put on the agenda that we look at protocols for change orders.
protocols for
school.
change orders.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, you did, something like that. Oh, sorry, my brain,
No
it's a
problem.
lot to keep it in place. I just need,
I mean, what I had in mind,
yes,
so you want us to add that as an agenda item, or I think we're covered under this discussing the roof.
Replacement.
let me go back to this and tell you how we are operating, okay? They have created a Dropbox. Our owner's rep has created a Dropbox this past week. And out there, it contains the status, what he had originally was the status reports from, kind of roof is it? Garland, because they're there looking at our roof as it's going up and doing their own inspections, probably oriented around the insurance, the warranty. One thing I have done is I have, well, one that's got that, it has what we covered in our meetings and any items. It has who all the team members are that are meeting. It has, what else did he drop out there? Something else, but what I've told him I want is I want the change orders and I want every kind of documentation that we know needs to be submitted to the state. Copies of the contract, anything else about that, I want that out in the Dropbox so that anybody on our committee can see it all. And it's to make sure we've got everything that we need. But the other thing is to make sure we don't have pieces like floating around. I know that we keep a file here. Sherry Susie is the keeper of the official documents, okay, that are wet signed. Have wet signatures. So, and change orders are an aspect of that. And the meetings, what we do is we review the change order, we get walked through the change order. We have that second one that's for like $15,000 for the wall extenders, I'm gonna call that, instead of brick. I did talk to you about this, right?
No,
Okay, so there's a second change order that came up.
This
When,
is after the $150,000.
yes. So the one that came up, everybody, and Jim was there, and John Calorese was there. Everybody understands what that is, and they all agree with what it is. And what it is when you go up with the insulation and everything, the wall doesn't extend up high enough to cover all of what they're putting in there. I'm not gonna point fingers. The reality is that's what the reality is.
So again. the
Instead of
architect-
having someone come in that's a mason to extend the wall up with brick, instead you can put in these frames that is what's recommended.
Mhm.
And so the first thing would be you couldn't get the mason in time, and it would cost a lot more. For the frames, which are acceptable to everybody there, the architect, the owner's rep, in fact, I think the architect was involved in coming up with what the solution was, general contractor, Cindy, the, bear with me. The Jim, John Calorese. It all makes sense to use those instead, and those are about $15,000. So it's not a big change
Are they calling
order.
them parapets?
No, they called it something else, and I'm sorry, it just didn't come to me off the top of my head. So I haven't seen the written documentation for that change order yet, but we talked about it. And so I'm expect to have that within the next week. And the process is that the change order is written up, the architect signs it. It's got the amount, basically, and what the kinds of materials are. The architect signs it, and the owner's rep signs it. I mean, not the owner's rep, the owner, which unfortunately is me. But I don't do that without the approval of everybody that's involved. And because they are closest to the project, and a number of them really know what they're talking about. So and you have to have that agreement already before it even comes to us, in terms of between the architect, the general contractor, and the owner's rep. So that's generally, I'm gonna call that the protocol, because that's how we do it. And we have a meeting, we were having them weekly, we're having them basically every other week now, because we are, they were off and running, and I don't know if I told you, they're on schedule, which is amazing. And they started vacuuming gravel off the roof, which is very noisy, so offices had to be relocated. They're doing that this week.
What I wanted to suggest and what I thought was, let's call them protocols for a change order. The 150,000, and I asked you in that email if I could get a copy of it. and the
I'll get you the
justification on
copy,
it. I
that's
never
not a
saw
problem.
anything, But
Oh, and the other thing too, is even though they said 150,000, what I had pressed for is they're using Garland materials, and there are substitute materials that are just as good, that don't cost 300% more. So I pressed again in this week's meeting, last week's meeting, for Garland to come back with better pricing, so that it doesn't end up being 150,000.
have they or they haven't? Have they come back?
Well, they didn't originally. I had written it in an email saying I wanted it at cost, and didn't, really didn't pursue it. I said I wanted a Garland rep at the meeting, and I wanted the meeting with the architect, et cetera, et cetera. And I think he avoided that. So
Who recommended Garland? The
who
architect.
recommended the what?
Garland, the change order, the 150,000.
Let's go back to who recommended putting up a Garland roof.
Okay,
That was architects.
What are the majority of the roofs that he puts up or he works on? Garland roofs. He has a close relationship with Garland,
the contractor,
not
Or-
the
No, no.
contractor.
The
the
architects.
architect.
The contractors
They're
put
not
up
the
Garland
architects
roofs,
back
that's not an issue. The contractor at one point in time, when I was talking with him, and it was during our meeting, I asked the question. I just said, could you put up a different roof that would meet the standards and everything in the same amount of time? for less money? And he said, yes. I said, how much less? He said, 500,000. So I'm gonna take this offline if that's okay with you. Because I have some questions about. I think we arrived at a Garland roof because Garland had been in there already doing repairs at the school. And happened to pick an architect who tends to go to Garland roofs more often, maybe than some other kinds. So having learned that, I'm doing a little bit of investigating on the side. So in the meantime, the roof's going up, it's a Garland roof. And that's a fact. And they're on time. It's gonna get done on time, I hope.
I mean, we went out to bid. Our architect developed specs,
Yep,
scope of work.
Yep.
The whole 9 yards, and we took bids on that.
correct.
And there was no mention of Garland or anybody like this.
I didn't, I'm kind of was at the tail end of that, because there was stuff going on beforehand. You sat with us when we went through the design. Did you hear anything that said Garland roof?
No,
Um,
no, when we bid it based on the scope that our architect working with the engineer came up with that we needed. And we awarded the bid on that.
Yep.
Basis.
and
It's kind of water under the bridge. Let me tell
it
you
is,
what I
it
had.
is, but no, but it's not, because there will be some conversation about this afterwards. Okay,
I just think that for your own benefit too, a protocol would be the architect does a proposed change order.
yes, that's what happens.
And whoever we decide signs off, our building rep signs off it, then it goes to you,
The building rep, who's the building rep?
owner's rep that we're paying.
That they worked together. They were working together. In fact, what happened was the owner's rep went to put it up online during our meeting. And Chris was gonna sit in on that one. And I said, Chris, I need you not to say anything during this meeting because you're gonna see something you've never seen. And what she saw was a come to Jesus meeting. And I'm not usually that harsh. And it was harsh. And what happened was when the owner's rep went to put the change order up on the screen, I said, don't ever put something up on a screen that we haven't seen before, that you haven't sent out to all of us to look at. That's one. And then the other thing was that I asked the architect if he had looked at the physical change order. And he said, well, no, they talked about it over the phone. To wit, I said, well,
Who's they?
that
The individual.
the owner's rep and the architect had talked about it over the phone. Okay, so in fact, maybe the owner's rep actually wrote it up for the architect. I don't know. All right, but what did happen is he said that when I asked the architect, he said, well, they had talked about it over the phone. So I said, well, under that, based upon that case, I figured he was looking at it for the first time. I said, why don't you walk us through it? And I got a humada, a bit of a humada, because I think he was taken off balance. And then it was, I'm not doing anything with this. We're not doing anything with this until we get it, it's sent out and we can actually look at it. You can explain what it is, which is fine. And that's when I sent out something and I said, based upon what I understand could be the cost, the cost of this, and it's Garland materials. I want to know what that would be at cost. Rather than the markup that we get.
Mhm.
And so I didn't really get a response to that. And I said I wanted a Garland rep at the meeting, because I also had a situation where I received a report that came through from Cindy, that the Garland rep had sent her a status, and that Garland rep is someone that works for Jeremy. So sent her a status, I'm the owner, I'm thinking, who is this guy? So what ended up happening was I saw it on a Saturday. It had come through, I don't know, Friday after hours. I called the guy. He went, it's the weekend. I said, so what? Who are you and what are you doing? I don't have you on the project at all. So if you think nobody's watching what's going on, we are watching. With that, I said, what are you doing and who are you? Because I didn't have his name.
Mhm.
And also I want to make sure that anybody who's on site has insurance. Okay. In case they get hurt. Not our insurance, their insurance. So he said, can I call you back in a couple of minutes? And when he didn't call me back. So about 10 minutes later, I called him again. He said, I thought you were going to give me the opportunity to, do that. I said, well, you said 2 minutes. And he couldn't really give me an answer. So believe me, that Monday, I was on the phone with our owner's rep and going, who is he? And as part of that meeting, our next meeting, I went through that and said, I want to know what's going on. It's like, oh, well, he needs to inspect it because of the warranty or whatever. Okay, he actually did a better report than what I received previously. So those reports are out in the Dropbox. And he does them, I guess, weekly.
What I had in mind
Yep,
was the architect and whoever decides that you have to consider a change order.
Yep.
They sign off. It's brought before the building committee, they sign off on it.
yep,
That includes the change order with the justification of why. And water is already under the bridge on this thing, I'm hoping. But why? That as owner's rep, which you are,
no, I'm the owner.
you're
The owner's rep
owner,
was hired.
Mhm.
the board's the owner, the town's the owner.
Mhm.
I am the official owner that has to sign. So I'm not saying that the rest of the town isn't involved. I'm just saying the protocol is that the owner has to sign.
What I'd like to see is that if there's if we set up a protocol for the change orders, we set a dollar amount that it doesn't have to come to the board. Let's throw out a figure, if it's $5,000 or less. If it's over that, you bring it to the board,
The board of who?
Board of Selectmen.
You're approving the change orders?
If it's over a
It's never been
certain
done
dollar.
that way.
What do you mean? it's
Like the
not
first
done that way?
selectman in the past has approved change orders on things. The change orders for this and the anything else that was built here, the whole board voted on, because I've never seen that before.
That's my understanding. I don't remember major change orders here. I think it came in under budget on this building.
In reality, they, in all likelihood, that's some kind of change order and you still come in, we're hoping to come in under budget too.
Yeah,
Again, the protocol right now is that actually what happens is the change order was requested by the general contractor. The
That's
problem
what I'm
I
saying.
have is that the general contractor during the walkthrough before the bids were submitted asked about this. He said, shouldn't we be doing this? Including that. And that did not get recorded in the questions that were asked, that were recorded for the walkthrough, which you have to do. So, and what is happening is the building committee is reviewing it because they're members of the group that's meeting every week or two. So as far as the Board of Selectmen approving them, one of the things we've been trying to do is go through this as quickly as we can. We can't slow up anything. They had to order materials.
well, and there are certain contractors that will take advantage of that.
We are
Give you
one,
the rush act.
oh, I get that. No, believe me, this went on over a period of 3 to 4 weeks. Wasn't like immediate
Mhm.
at all. I'm not that kind of manager.
I didn't hear about it until it was done, the Monday before you signed off. On the
I told you
Thursday.
about it when we had a meeting.
That Monday before,
Yeah, I
we
told you
signed
about it
off
when
on
we
it
had a
on that
meeting to
Thursday.
talk about it.
and you had just heard about it a week or so before, because I brought it up because I heard it from.
Right, but I didn't have
Reese.
paperwork when I told you. All I had was what they were telling me it was. And my question is, why didn't this come up as part of the bidding process? And why didn't the architect include it? Because he should have known. He did know that it was gonna be needed.
The architect should have been on top of it, and
Oh, yeah.
certain contractors, that's the game they play.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
They're
that
gonna
was,
low bid,
that was
they're
the
gonna come in with a low bid,
Knowing
okay.
they're gonna make.
and then
silly
all of a
money.
sudden, they're gonna hit you with this change order that has to be done.
Well, the problem was the architect already knew.
That's a big
That's a
problem too.
yeah.
And there wasn't enough time between the walkthrough. It was only a few days for the general contractor to put together information about what could be an alternative. And that's, to me, that's the real problem. So, no, this was not done willy-nilly. I don't manage
No,
like that.
that's
Nope, I'm not
accurate.
accusing you of anything. I just.
And
think
that come to Jesus meeting was about that.
We just have to be, we have to be wary of these sharks.
I know, and believe me, Cindy and I are very aware.
Good, good, good,
Uh,
'cause-
And I have some information I get from other sources
Mhm.
about the companies
Yeah.
and practices,
Yeah.
and they are aware of what's going on with this
Yeah.
project.
you know,
And I have every intention of letting others know.
Okay.
So let me get through this.
Please.
Okay. I think we are at the fire station roof update. The solar was removed.
Well, fee schedule and Ashford Food Bank donation policy.
I said, oh, I'm sorry. I'd like to waive that for this meeting. I haven't had time to do much with it other than things verbally with people.
Amen.
The fire station roof, solar was removed last Friday. The holdup was that the person in the solar company was not getting back to anybody, so I got information about who to contact. And that person got back to me right away. We have a different liaison with that company now,
Mhm.
which is fine. That's what I wanted. And he's not only that, he is actually communicating with McClintock and with Paul Varga, making, everybody's on copy and me. And McClintock, if I understand correctly, is going to start the roof replacement in the next week or two. Oh, one thing that did happen with the school roof was that the people that were going to, the group that was subcontracted to do the vacuuming of the rock off the roof was supposed to come out last Thursday and did not. And I don't know what they were looking at, but they were thinking we were going to have thunderstorms. They're located in New Jersey. So when they come up, they're up here for like a week doing this. And so they were going to start, they started it Monday, this past Monday. It was supposed to start last Thursday.
Just an aside, did we have any damage to company two up by the lake? I heard some tree came down
Any damage to what?
to company two, the other firehouse.
I
up
hadn't
in-
heard.
No one's talked about
Okay.
that
Just-
at all.
just- Somebody
I
said a
would
tree came
appreciate
down up there.
knowing.
I just didn't know.
Would I expect to hear that from Paul?
I don't know.